If you enjoy finding the budget buys off Amazon and finding really good deals on amplifiers, today we're going to look at a new brand, 4-channel as well as a monoblock. Find out what it's all about from a name called Domanki. And yeah, I picked up both of these for around $150. Let's see what they're all about. First off, we'll take a look at the 4-channel model, the SDJ 80.4FD. And here it is. Let's unbox it and see what's inside. First off, we'll get the owner's manual, which covers 2 different 4-channel models. The one we have here is the smaller version. Pull the amplifier out. Let's see what else is included. Here we have some mounting screws as well as 2 30-amp fuses. And we'll take the amplifier out of the plastic, take a closer look at it, and there you go. Pretty small little amplifier here. I like the terminals there on one end. It doesn't stick way out like that Ocean Audio that we did before. And there's the switches. Let's get to each end of the amp here and take a closer look after we do an overhead shot. Very basic design here, nothing fancy at all. Domanki or Domanki, I have no idea. They make air conditioners. They make all kind of electronics. But let's take a look here at one end of the amp. You'll see it looks like a mirror on each side. It has the gain, high pass filter, low pass filter, and a switch for high pass, low pass, or full range, and 4 RCA inputs. So very bare bones, very basic, but it is nice to see high and low pass on all the channels, whereas some of these small amps, they only give you high pass on the front channels and low or high on the rear channels. But there you go, pretty basic. Again, here on one, let's switch around to the other end. And we'll notice it has these angle terminals, but these are pretty nice because they're pretty compact. 4 gauge for power and ground, 12 gauge for the remote terminal there in the center. We're not going to confuse this and hook it up wrong like we did before because it's very easy to see. Also, we have the speaker outputs. These are 12 gauge as well, and note the outer terminals are for bridging. Minus channel 1 plus channel 2, minus channel 3 plus channel 4 will bridge the amplifier. You can also run it 2, 3, or 4 channel mode. As far as dimensions, 8 inches on the long side, that includes the terminals and the RCAs, 4.7 inches for the width, 2 inches for the height. As for ratings, 4 ohms 80x4, 2 ohms 120x4, or 4 ohms bridge 240x2. All those are at 14.4 volts. Now we've matched the amplifier on the dyno using the DD1 Plus to 10 dB of overlap so that we have both channels matched, or all 4 channels matched. So let's try the 4-channel test first at 4 ohms, rated 80 watts by 4. We're going to show 2 of the channels here on the dyno. The other 2 are loaded at 4 ohms using external resistors. And check this out. It's rated 80 by 4. We're running less than 14.4, and we got almost 90 watts times 4. So this is a good start for the amp. We're going to switch straight to the dynamic test. We'll skip the uncertified, but I will show you that in the results. And here you can see the average is around 90 watts by 4 here at 13.89 volts. Now let's set the dyno for the 2 ohm load. Again, 4 channels, it's rated 120 by 4. We're showing 2 here tested on the dyno. The other 2 are loaded at 2 ohms as well. Rated 120 by 4. And again, 13.46. We got well over that, got over 130 watts per channel. And we'll switch over to the dynamic mode, which sends a pulse tone, in this case 1 kilohertz. Here you can see the average about 164 by 4 at 13.74. Yo! Now let's bridge the amp and try the 2-channel test. We have again channel 1 minus channel 2 plus, channel 3 minus channel 4 plus. Here hooked up using the 12 gauge wire there. Again, 4 gauge for the power inputs. Let's try it out. It's rated 240 by 2. So let's see what we get here. Certified test to 1% distortion using the 1 kilohertz track. And yes, my friends, close to 280 watts by 2. Again, 13.5 volts. We haven't even fed it the 14.4. Reason I did that for this test is because I figure if you're going to use something like this, you're probably not going to be able to keep up strong voltage. You might have a small alternator or whatever. Dynamically, look at this, over 300 watts at 13.7. So then we did a quick 2 ohm test, 1 kilohertz dynamic, and look at this, almost 500 watts by 2 at 13.6. Say it ain't so. And here are all the results of all the different tests. You can pause this if you want to see the 8 ohm test as well. We did efficiency on some of them. around 90% at 4 ohms, 70% at 2 ohms, and then bridged around 77% efficient at 8 ohms and 74% at 4 ohms. Again, exceeded the rated power in all different tests, even at lower voltage. Now let's move on to the Monoblock, the SDT 1000.1D, again by Domanki, Do something key. And here it is, comes with an owner's manual, of course. This one is a little bit different though, because it has some additional accessories. We get the mounting screws as well as 3 40 amp fuses. These are the mini ATC style. We get a high level input adapter that is not included with the other amp. And we get a cable here. It's a stereo 3.5 millimeter. That is for your bass control. This is the super basic bass knob. Literally just has a volume potentiometer and a plug on the back for the 3.5 millimeter. It has no lights, no clipping, no LED, no nothing. Let's get the amp out though. But first, toss that silica gel right into your toolbox. Here it is, the Domanki 1000 watt Monoblock. Very slim, kind of small amp. Looks like this will fit under most seats in cars. And here's all the stuff that's included. We've already shown off there in the unboxing. It does come with the base cable and the remote. And again, at the time of this video, this thing was under $80, so pretty incredible. Here on one end of the amp, you'll see we have RCA inputs, the high-level input, gain control, 0.25 volts to 6 volts, subsonic adjustment from 10 hertz up to 50 hertz, bass boost 0 to 12 dB at 45 hertz, and low pass 250 hertz down to 35. Then we have the 3.5 millimeter jack there for the bass remote. On the opposite end, we have the speaker outputs. These are 12 gauge. There's 2 outputs, even though this is a monoblock amp. Easy for hooking up multiple subs or dual voice coil subs. We also have power protect LEDs. 12 volt remote and ground. The 12 volt and ground are 4 gauge. Remote is 12 gauge. Overall, I have no issue with the terminals here. I actually kind of like these. I think they're pretty good here for a budget amplifier. As far as dimensions, 10.5 inches on the long side, 4.2 inches for the width, 1.8 inches for the height. And ratings required, which are also in the box, 4 ohms, 400 watts, 2 ohms, 650, 1 ohm, 1000 watts. So we'll have to find out what it really does here. We got it all hooked up. We have 2 12 gauge runs going to the Amp Dyno. It is a monoblock amp, but it has 2 different speaker outputs. And here we go. Let's do the run here. Certified to 1% distortion using the 40 hertz track. Can we get the 400 watts that's rated? Yeah, we get 438. Voltage is a little high though, 14.75. Let's turn down that voltage some and try the test again. Now we're not going to be right at 14.4. We're actually going to be in the mid 13s. Let's try it there though. This will give us an idea of if you have lower voltage. And we're close, 379 at 13.7. So at 14.4, it definitely does that 400 watts it's rated. We'll switch to the dynamic mode here using the pulse tone like a kick drum. Again, voltage is kind of strong here in the higher 14s, and we're getting right at 500 watts. Oop, it just jumped over 501, 14.76. Now let's try 2 ohms where it's rated 650 at 14.4 volts. Again, testing at 40 hertz, certified up to 1% distortion. And what can we get? There you go, 726, 14.5 volts. Well, we'll turn that voltage down once again so you guys can see the lower voltage here. See what we get if you have like a Honda or something that charges in the mid to late 13s or upper 13s. 601 watts at 13.5 volts. So just under that rated power. Now let's try it dynamically using the higher voltage setting. And here you go. 875 watts, 14.63. Not too bad, especially for the money. Now let's switch over to the 1 ohm test where it's rated 1000 watts. In a lot of cases, these little budget amps are rated max power. This one does not appear to be. Let's see what we get certified to 1% distortion. There you go, 1022 watts, 14.38. So we're actually right at 14.4. It did its rated power. It's almost like they have an Amp Dyno or they use an Audio Precision or something when they tested these because they're right at their power. Here with lower voltage, we get 863 at 13.22. Then we'll reset it here for the uncertified test at 1 ohm. See what we get. And yeah, 1282 at 14.43. Nice. Now we'll try it dynamic, and here you go. Look at this. Touching up on 1500 watts. 1481 at 14.72. Now, the only thing is there is an issue. Something you did not see because I didn't show the amplifier, but I'm going to show it here. In every certified test and every uncertified test, this is what happened at the end of the test. Watch the amp. Once we got near the end of the test, when it showed the power output, we went into protect. And is that to save the fuses on the inside? I'm not sure, but either way, I've never seen an amp do this at all loads, including 8 ohms. Speaking of 8 ohms, here are the results, though, of all the different tests. And yes, it performed well, but that going into protect at the end of the test is a little concerning. Did not have that issue with speakers, so that's what really matters. But anyway, just want to let you guys know that it did do that, and it's the only amp I've ever seen do that in every single test. But here it is. Compared to the 4-channel, it's kind of odd here. They're not exactly the same heatsink design. You can see the monoblock is skinnier, also not as tall, and overall they don't really match. So that's kind of odd for these to be kind of from the same model line, and they just don't match. But anyway, let's take the bottom off here of the 4-channel first and see what it looks like inside. And here we have it, very compact, lots of components in a little amount of space here. We'll do the flyover so you can see it. See the daughter board there on the end with all the crossover settings, as well as here on the power supply, 25 volt, 2200 microfarad. And then on the rails, 2200 microfarad, 35 volt capacitors. Again, these are kind of generics, but what would you expect for an amplifier that only costs 65 bucks? So overall, it did well on the dyno runs. The only thing I don't like here is the 30 amp fuses are inside of the amp, so you do have to take the bottom plate off to be able to get to them. Let's go ahead and take the bottom plate off of the Monoblock 1000 watt version, see what it's all about. And here you go. Looks a lot like a Scar audio amplifier to me, and much cheaper. But there's the big capacitors there in the middle. You can see the power supply as well as the inductor. Here we have capacitors for the power supply. These are 4700 microfarad 16 volt odd caps, and then we have 3300 microfarad 80 volt for the rails. And yeah, both of the amps here together, you know, nothing too special with the guts. Definitely look like a kind of an off-the-shelf design, but man, for the price, wow, I don't know. It's kind of hard to beat both these. You can fit one on each seat. Let's talk about the pros and cons. First off, I'm going to start with the 4-channel model. We'll talk about the things I like. Obviously, the small footprint, did rated power plus, crossover flexibility. We have low pass and high pass on all 4 channels. The terminals are pretty nice, pretty easy to hook it up. 2, 3, or 4 channel operation is always nice and very inexpensive. This will work, you know, pretty much on any budget. Things that could be better, it does require 4-channel input. There's no switch for 2-channel. No bass remote, no Bluetooth. The fuses are inside the amp, so if you do blow the fuse, you have to take the bottom plate off the amp. This is a new brand, so we're not really sure about the warranty after that 30-day Amazon deal. So the Monoblock, it has a small footprint as well, rated power plus. Variable subsonic filter is nice on a budget amp. I like the terminals on both amplifiers, how it hooks up. This one does include a bass remote. For an amplifier that's under $80, that's pretty incredible for what you're getting. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, the things to consider, protect mode in all the certified and uncertified tests was odd. The bass remote was very basic, and it used a 3.5 millimeter setting. The fuses are inside the amp, and the new brand and the warranty. And again, not sure about that. But based on the results here, I would say these amplifiers were impressive to me for the price and all that. But again, these are super budget, so be careful with your money. Buy something nicer if you really want to get it. But if you don't have much money, these are pretty cool. Till next time, Big D, I'm out of here. Even though the Monoblock went into protect in the different tests, we're going to try the 0.8 ohms and see what we get here. Certified to 1% distortion. And yeah, 1058. Of course, it did go into protect. I had to cycle the amplifier off and back on, but we're going to try it uncertified to clipping. And remember, it's got 120 amps worth of fusing. We're not even close to that, but 1341 at 14.35. And again, we had to cycle the amp off and back on. Dynamically though, none of the dynamic tests did the amp go into protect, so that was something to note. Here we're getting right at 1600 watts at 14.24. And we'll switch over to 0.67. I don't know why I did this, but I figured, why not? Certified at 0.67. It's hard to believe this amp will actually even do that. 1122 watts at 14 volts. Again, we had to cycle it off and back on. Switch over to the dynamic test we did not do uncertified at 0.67. Here you can see almost 1800 watts, 1785 at 14 volts. But we're not done yet, my friends, because we're going to try half an ohm dynamic burst with this $80 Amazon amp that says it's 1000 watts. And here you go. Are you ready for this? Yes, we're going to bust 2000 watts. What? Here it is. Boom! 2030 14.47.